Hello everyone. So I thought I would do a video on the topic of the importance of being mindful of your moral obligation if you are claiming extreme spiritual gifts to not be using the social media pages. If you are a public figure or verging on public figure, that verging on public figure being that you are selling psychic services, announcing yourself as a psychic with spiritual gifts for hire or readings for hire, at that point, you're a public figure. Verging. If most of the time, most people would identify full throttle public figure people as people who have fame. But if you're coming into the public forum and you're claiming that you have the ability to turn on extreme spiritual gifts due to the magic situation of someone handing you hundreds of dollars, and you're posting things on your social media tied to politics, tied to current events, and you are posting things tied to political sides that you are not aligned to, I just want to reaffirm to all of you, you would have still the moral obligation to be truthful in your posting. You have the moral obligation to fact check what you post, to know what you're talking about, and to not be sharing the posts of known propagandists of either the extreme left or the extreme right. The standard of being responsible for who and what you funnel feed people to while claiming extreme spiritual gifts, that same standard that should apply to John Holland, John Edward, Dougal Fraser, Dr. Brian Weiss, James Von Prague, Chris Carr, Colette Baron-Reed, that same standard of your either care for truth and are responsible for who and what you promote that would apply to a very well-known psychic applies to lesser-known psychics. Excuse me. And it's not that hard. You use this thing called Google. Before you make a stupid post, you say, hey, is it bright to compare what's happening in the southern border of the United States and to make a post claiming that they have concentration camps for children, migrant children? I mean, I literally saw that this week, and I was gassed that someone made reference as if we had concentration camps for children in the United States. So I know that Google is hard, and some of you who are psychic seem to not do any actual hardcore reading about facts or history or life. And although you all claim you have past lives, you don't seem to have any cognitive understanding of people's tendencies to make choices based on how they perceive things in their time, and how spreading propaganda to get people worked up is a great way to, to rise up an inquisition, witch trials, French Revolution. I mean, these are kind of reoccurring themes where mob mentality and misinformation and hysteria combined with whacked out justice concepts with huge groups kind of went terribly wrong. It's amazing, though, how these people who claim they believe in past lives and have these spirit guides and talk to the dead people in heaven don't seem to know ancient history, sort of modern U.S. history, history during the Obama administration, or current history. It's been rather fascinating to see some people who claim to have spiritual gifts posting images that were first released by certain members of the media who didn't do their research and shared photos and were like, look at the conditions that Trump is doing to people. And the pictures were from 2014 from Breitbart Publishing as part of an expose they were trying to do about the inhumane conditions of people in the migrant detention centers under the Obama administration. It's amazing how these psychics who are so enraged or upset about the detention centers and the conditions don't realize they've actually improved since the Obama administration was sued for inhumane conditions. I think that was around the 2014 timeframe. How come they don't know this if they have such guts? How come some of these people post nasty things about Breitbart Publishing and claim they're racist when it was Brandon Darby of Breitbart Publishing, who loves many people who live near the border, including many Mexican people, and he constantly covers the stories of extreme drug cartel violence and murders of innocent Mexicans and police officers due to the drug activity and the violence in Mexico and near the border. He's even covered the rape trees. But the Breitbart people get called racists and Nazis. Yeah, the political progressives, they're just lovely people. I want you to think about some of the communications that you're finding at times on New Age people's pages. People who seem to have been in a coma about the human rights violations that members of the Republican Party and that some people tried to bring up during the Obama administration. It's fascinating that Donald Trump not letting in people from certain Muslim countries is considered a horrific thing to some of the political progressives. But Barack Obama is the president of the United States, authorizing the drone bombing, like the little killing of innocent Muslim people in their own country, to such a level there are tons of Muslims who want Barack Obama dead, and they see him as a murderer of Muslims. How come the political progressives who are so concerned about Trump don't seem to have any posts on their social media about Barack Obama killing innocent Muslim people through his policies that his administration did? How come there's no posts on John Edwards' social media about the horrors and the injustice and the deaths that happened because of Barack Obama's administration, the little game they ran with Fast and Furious that ended up with the U.S. government selling a whole bunch of guns to criminals, and that resulted in criminals in Mexico using those weapons to kill innocent Mexican people in Mexico? Where are the dead people then? Oh, dead people, I guess, only care about brown people when it fits the Democratic agenda, when the medium's a Democrat. That's all we can suppose. And you might be like, Desiree, why are you bringing this up? It's important for you to see a pattern. It's important for you also to see that someone who truly cares about people doesn't suddenly only care about people when the person in charge is not of their party. If you went through my social media, you would find more times that I have called out Donald Trump than I have ever called out Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton. And I'm a Republican. Where have these political progressives who seem to be inflaming at times people who follow them and who believe in their spiritual gifts, where have they called out Democrats where they did wrong things? I don't see it. If I have the balls to call out the president of the United States as a Republican who voted for him, and to say, you know what, I didn't really like the stupid lies under Obama, I don't really like the dumbass ones from you. You know, the Betsy DeVos thing, not really a fan. Could we have someone in charge of the EPA? who hasn't sued the EPA and wants to seemingly eliminate it. You know, the whole nuclear leakage problem that we had in Washington state, got to tell you, kind of pretty intense when you realize that the person in charge of the energy department will be in charge of cleaning that shit up is a guy who's been on Dancing with the Stars, Rick Perry. Not real impressive. But I've numerous times called out the President of the United States as a Republican on social media. And if you went through my social media as a Republican, one of the things that mortifies everybody is I call out wrong stuff on all sides. I don't just post the stuff that paints Donald Trump or his administration in a positive light. So I sometimes get attacked by my fellow Republicans who are hardcore Trumpkins. Never go hardcore Trumpkin. There's a difference between being a patriot and a supporter of the Republican Party and being a full throttle Trumpkin. Never go Trumpkin, where you make excuses for every wrong and stupid, dangerous thing that Donald Trump would do. That is just like being an Obamaite. And for 8 years, those of us on the right called out that it was absolutely wrong when the Democratic Party made excuses for Barack Obama's lies, for his overreach of executive authority power, for his things that he did were wrong, and for his targeting of conservatives with the IRS. You can't call the other party out for doing wrong things, and then when your own party holds power, say, well, it's okay because it's us. No. If you called out Barack Obama for saying untruthful things, congratulations. If you spent 8 years of complaining about that, Donald Trump on a regular basis is going to give you the opportunity to call him out and to see if you hold to the same standard when your own party holds power. That's how the game goes when you're ethical. I know it's not popular with the hardcore righties and the hardcore lefties. The moderates of the world seem to have dissipated or disappeared somewhere. And it used to be the moderates that used to really call both sides to sanity, and they've seemingly been eaten, or I don't know where they went. I have no idea where they went. There used to be a bunch of them, and now they're gone. The left is gone more full throttle, social justice warrior, socialist, sometimes verging communist, off the rails. And the right, sometimes I can't even identify them. It's some of the right who holds to the traditional values. We get attacked, called never Trumpers, even if you voted for Trump. If you criticize them at all, they assume you're never Trumper or voted for Hillary. Or you have the right, you have, if you criticize Trump at all, you're a never Trumper. And if you, or they just call you unpatriotic. It's really annoying when you had 8 years where every time some of us criticized Barack Obama, we were falsely accused of racism. And now anything Democrats can do that's crazy, my fellow Republicans can do and be even more crazy about. So now the full throttle Trumpkins have gone to anyone who criticizes dear leader Trump is anti-patriotic. Yeah, both sides are nuts. But it's really important that you understand both sides can be nuts. It's really important if you're a psychic or a medium or a psychic reader or a psychic healer that you understand that if you're posting stuff on your page where you sell your psychic services, or you advocate your psychic services, or you're doing your psychic advocacy work, and you're posting things that are clearly provably false, tied to things during politics, that's evidence that you don't hear heaven, that the goddess Hecate isn't properly guiding you, that you're not someone that other people should take guidance from. If you can't do simple, why would anyone take guidance from someone who at times is posting things that are completely untrue? If you're posting things that seem to make it seem like the United States is on the verge of fascism, or the Trump administration is full of Nazis, or you're posting encouraging the open harassment of members of the Trump administration in public, do you realize how dangerous that is? Do you realize that sets the tone for violence to happen, to possibly cause another assassination attempt on Republicans? It's rather fascinating. All these people have all these so-called spiritual gifts, but they don't even seem to know 1 year ago and a couple weeks ago, we had one of the biggest mass assassination attempts on a party in the United States history happen at a baseball game, where someone politically to the left, falling for the lies of the political left that Republicans were going to destroy everyone and kill people and destroy our world, that one of the lefty people, I believe it was a Bernie boy, went and took a weapon and tried to shoot a whole bunch of Republicans who were practicing for a baseball game. Could have knocked out 10% of the Republican leadership and a mass assassination attempt. That happened 1 year ago and a couple weeks ago. And 1 year and a couple weeks ago later, what do we see? Well, people who've been riled up by the progressive left, who have been sold this, you have to define yourself in resistance, and Trump is Hitler, and all his staff are Nazis, and they're going to destroy our world, and they're just evil, and they react to any political progressive outrage, and they don't fact check. A year and a couple weeks after a mass assassination attempt of 10% of the Republican leadership, we have Peter Fonda, brother of Jane Fonda, a well-known Hollywood celebrity, posting that he wants the son of the president thrown in a cage with pedophiles for repeated rape. And he wants one of the people of the Trump administration who's female to be stripped naked and raped, I guess. We have Maxine, the lunatic lefty Dem, encouraging people in public after Sarah Sanders went into an eatery, and she went to get something to eat, and the owner of, I guess, the Red Hen literally kicked her out. Now, if she had done that in Seattle, there'd be a massive lawsuit and a civil rights claim. Just, that's really clear. You don't play that shit in Seattle. Political discrimination in public accommodations is absolutely illegal, and it is a protected class in the city of Seattle. So when you live in Seattle, if you know anything about the law and you accept any kind of our mentality, you don't live the right of, you deny people full service to your restaurant just because you don't like their politics or who they work for. Can you imagine if a member of the Obama administration was treated like that by a Republican? The cries of discrimination that would be ringing out, and how the left would unglue. And the comparison that I saw some psychic people making is like, well, this is okay because Christian bakeries deny service to gay people. Wow, where the hell are these people's guides? Where are these people's reasoning? It's almost like they don't know Jack the Baker from Masterpiece Bakery never kicked the gay couple that he said, I can't make a custom art piece against my faith, but you can buy anything else. It's almost like these people who claim these extreme gifts don't know that Jack the Baker, even with this massive lawsuit, having lost thousands and thousands of dollars in business over the years while this went all the way up to the Supreme Court. Jack the Baker made another public affirmation at the very gay couple who sued him to try to destroy his business. He said they're still welcome in his bakery. He won't make them custom pieces against faith, but they are still welcome because Jack the Baker has over and over and over affirmed he serves all people. He does not make custom art creations against faith to celebrate all events. So he doesn't make porno cakes. He doesn't make politically hostile cakes. He doesn't make racist cakes. He doesn't make cakes that demean gay people. But you can be a porn star and walk into his store and buy some cookies or buy a pre-made cake, and he's not going to kick you out. You can be gay and you can go to Masterpiece Bakery and you're not going to get kicked out for being gay. Jack won't make a custom wedding cake for you, but if you want a birthday cake, you might get it. Because it's not about him blessing what he can't. Serves all people, doesn't celebrate all events. It's amazing how I'm seeing posts from psychics who can't get the difference. If Sarah Sanders had walked into the Red Hen and had said, I'd like to have a GOP fundraiser here, that would be okay for the Red Hen to say, you know what, we're not going to do a catered private event, custom, against our deeply held political beliefs for the Republican Party. That would be custom. If Sarah Sanders had said, I want to buy access to your place after hours to hold Donald Trump's next birthday party here, and the owners had said, that doesn't align to our faith, we're hardcore Hillary Clinton supporters, that wouldn't be denying all service. That would be denying special access, custom stuff against deeply held political beliefs, which to some people are like religious, in Seattle particularly. But what did Red Hen do? They denied Sarah Sanders all service, not custom service. A public eatery that is required unto a public accommodation decided to engage in active political discrimination. And we have psychics who claim they have extreme spiritual guides and have these grand teachers, or her talking to the goddess Hecate, or talking to fairies, unable to tell the difference between custom work against faith and denying all service. They can't tell the difference, but they want you to give them money to tell you how to live your life. Wow. I want you to think about that. I want you to think about how we just went through a very contentious election in 2016, where we had members of the Democratic Party, including Hillary Clinton, engaging in illiberal, immoral, unjust communication, where she, as the Democratic nominee for President of the United States, defamed millions of hardworking Americans of the opposite party, slandering them and telling people around the country and the world that these people who didn't want her as president were xenophobe, homophobe. They were hating women, that they were horrible people, alt-right Nazi type people. They were a basket of deplorables, and she's so much better, and their followers are so much better. Do you realize the energy of what she put out and how what she did in that moment, helped sealed her losing the election? Do you realize? Do you realize how the possible future president of the United States, putting that out to about millions of hardworking Americans, made sure tons of Trump on the fence people who might have not shown up to vote definitely showed up to vote because they didn't want to hear this woman slander them and say lies about them and say things that might increase violence to them, because she had said things throughout the presidential election where she did not call for all violence against Trump supporters to absolutely stop, and for people on her side to stop calling people who were Republican Nazis. Do you remember the election at all? Because I remember the election, and I remember not being sure what I was going to do and having a list. I've got my Hillary list, my Trump list, the positive, the negative. I had incredible, negatives on both of them and some positives on most of them, but more negatives on both of them, and deciding which one I'm going to vote for of the two choices. And I remember wanting to go to hear Trump speak live and going when he had a rally, and my friends begging me not to go, fearful that Democrats would assault me as a handicapped person. They thought that their own Democratic type believing people would assault a handicapped middle-aged woman because the rhetoric was that insane. We had that kind of election. We had people being assaulted at Trump rallies, assaulting women. It was completely, absolutely off the rails. And the Democrats used slander and fear against other American citizens to try to energize the base based on extreme fear to get money from people. And they used it to get a lot of money from people. And Hillary Clinton was entirely wasteful and was expensive as frick to run. So they went through an incredible amount of money. But they used fear and lies about your fellow Americans to fill the war chest. And now it's almost 1 year before the gear up of the next presidential election lineup. And look what they're gearing. Look what they're gearing. They're gearing that it's okay to openly harass people who work for the Trump administration when they're filling up their car with gas, including women. They're gearing up, it's okay to harass women when they're trying to eat dinner. They're gearing up, it's okay to harass. Don't harass them to the point they don't feel safe in public anywhere. Can you imagine if people did that to members of the Obama administration, how that would be perceived as terrorism? It was a little over a year ago, due to violent rhetoric of the left, we had someone go off the rails and try to assassinate close to 10% of the Republican leadership in one sweep at a baseball game. And a year and a couple weeks later, they're trying to go for terrorize these people in public so they're afraid to go out. Do you think that's going to make people who work for the president, who are rational, do you think that's going to help them hear things you might want them to say if you have valid criticism? Or do you think they're more likely to close down if you terrorize them and their family when they go out? Do you think that's going to make them more or less inclined, if something happens, to go to martial law? Any of you thinking? If you want to move people, terrorizing them and their family probably isn't a loving, kind, or sane thing. But we've had psychics or people who claim they're psychics advocating for this. Love or fear, and they're going for fear. I want you to see what's going on around. I want you to see that. It's 1 year to the ramp up of the next presidential election process starting. The Dems are broke. They're going to be desperate. They're going to either want to utilize a situation to garner more fear, to get massive donations based on desperation. Last time they're like, give money, Hillary's your only chance, or the end of the world comes. They're going to use a natural occurring situation where there might be an inclination for some to want to stoke the fires to create stuff. I would highly encourage all people who are in the psychic or intuitive community to stay entirely grounded and to understand the temptation of some who are in the media and some who are in power to manipulate groups of people to their end. A true spiritual master has peace in the middle of a storm and holds to foundational principles of the value of people, even when they're dealing with someone they can't stand. If you lose, or someone else you're following loses their moral compass about what is right and what is wrong based on the political ideology of the people they are speaking about, you probably want to use that as an indicator that you don't want to take them as any kind of spiritual guide. It is very, very important that people understand when Black Lives Matter was amping up. At one point, there was a mass amount of misinformation to get people's goat going, to get them energized and pissed off and hostile. Remember the media with the whole thing of the black guy shot from behind with the hands up, and they posed like this and they got us all pissed off. I remember being really upset when they told us there was a black young man shot from behind with his hands up. I remember how that felt at that moment when they told us that. And I also remember how they let that go wild and people start ripping up cities and committing violence. And then it came out, it wasn't so truthful. And over again, I noticed that Black Lives Matter would share posts and information stories, and they would leave critical things out, wanting to get people more and more angry and pissed. It was escalating and escalating. We were seeing attacks on our cops. People were trying to kill them. People were assaulting them. They were making threats against their possible families. I remember that period. And I remember the story of listening to Glenn Beck's program where he had a staff member interview the family of a black man who'd gone off the rails and murdered 5 cops in Texas. And hearing the story of a young black man who was a military veteran, who had PTSD, who was somewhat isolated, I think was living at home, having his own struggles, and he got totally wrapped up in all this fear and all this hate and this narrative of desperation and total wrapped in fear. They're coming to kill you. They're coming to kill you. The white cops are coming to kill you. And the reality of what was going on, he wasn't hearing. He was hearing the propaganda fear. And then he acted on it. And he took 5 cops' lives. He became a murderer. He became the violent, horrible monster he'd wanted to stand against. He killed innocents. He killed good people. He did that because he got lost in moral compass and got swept away in propaganda that was intentionally intended to incite some people to violence. It is very, very important when you can see stuff like this happening in the media, and the media being used to stoke people's emotions up with cities, the looting. Member of Black Lives Matter arguing it's okay for blacks to loot a business based on victimhood agenda or propaganda excuses. Imagine if I said it was okay for me to rob you or break into your home because someone sometime in my past, in my family, had been hurt by someone who had the shade of skin that you did, so I could steal from you. Would you buy that? I want you to think about the dangerous things that are swirling and to remember the value of human people. Many times, mob mentality based on illiberal justice, pushes, and fear has led to incredible harm. Whether it was the witch trials, whether it's the French Revolution, whether it was Japanese internment camps, grounded in the storm. Grounded not in outrage or your emotions, but the values of truth, love, life, and reason. Any so-called psychic or spiritual teacher who is selling access to their spiritual gifts, who is posting things now that are politically untrue, that is your warning sign. Stay grounded in the light.